activities, entertainment activities, social gathering. These are things that we have lost, and this is the state of the audience to which we will be communicating. And so the implication of COVID-19 for messaging is to ensure that whatever we communicate is relevant to our audience, bearing in mind the context in which they find themselves. Another implication is what I refer to as passion projects. With more time on the hands of a lot of people, expect them to focus on what is their passion. Projects that have been on the back burner. They could be commercial projects, they could be products, they could be services, they could be individual objectives. These are what we will see a swarm of new projects. It is important in this context to ensure that we check what the alignment is between these projects and the current situation. And so if we want to discuss these projects, if we want to communicate these projects, alignment to the context is very important. If such products must have to be externally focused. Externally focused in the sense that you don't come up with projects around this time that looks just at you and your organization and your profit, your bottom line, but you must bear in mind what it is that is the state of the audience to which you want to pitch these projects to. One thing I would say quickly is that this is about the worst time to launch something new, because minds and emotions and concerns are set elsewhere, particularly if that something new is not aligned to the context that we find ourselves in, which is the pandemic era. There is also an online rush, an extraordinary number of online propositions in the form of products, in the form of services. The world is inundated with online teaching and learning. Indeed, the webinar that we are having today is a typical example of the extent to which there is a rush on online activities, conferences, workshops, teaching, learning, and also for sharing COVID-19 information. All these come as solutions to the current challenge. But the challenge for us communicators is how to cut through this new clutter. And so as PR professionals, as marketing professionals, one of the implications of COVID-19 is to how to cut through the clutter on online media. Faced with this situation, what are the new business models and services that will become a part of a new normal? How do we contribute online technologies in ways that we never thought of? Brands will have to get their messages out through a stay-at-home creative funnel. How do we feed that funnel? How do we empower that funnel? The funnel of an army of workers, of innovators, who sit and work from home. It is our responsibility as communicators to ensure that we support the feeding of this funnel in such a way that it responds to what we need to communicate in order to ensure that we are aligned with the context that we have on our hands. Another implication is what I refer to as the contagious nature of COVID-19. And in that, I will say fear is contagious, so is hope. What do I mean by that? As communicators in this context, it is also our responsibility to offer confidence and optimism in the way we move our teams to work, in the kinds of messages we send to our customers. Of course, there are a lot of challenges, but it should not just be about the challenge in which we find ourselves. What is the silver lining in the challenge? What ray of hope can we offer? What optimism can we share without necessarily creating the impression or trying to diminish the impact of what we are going through and the seriousness with which we need to approach it? The communications and marketing fraternity must lead in a way that offers hope in the face of the anxieties, and we must commit to that message of hope. It's also led to a situation where our clients are having a change in their priorities, and communication teams, marketing teams must review their approach and also align with the changing priorities of our clients. In this, I think there are three key perspectives regarding messaging that I would want to share. There are those clients, okay? There are those clients who are looking at the near-term periscope into the crisis. The near-term periscope, that is, they want information, they want insight, they want to understand exactly what the issues are, how are they impacting on employees, how are they impacting on stakeholders and the larger public. These are one set of clients that we need to be targeting with messaging. There is the second set of clients who are more concerned about what I call the mid-term blueprint of what early recovery might look like. And so in the midst of the pandemic, they are also thinking of what is it that they will have to do in the era of recovery. And then there is the third set who are looking for a long-term roadmap, a visualization of the world when it emerges from the ashes of the pandemic. These are three sets of customers, of clients that we need to cater for when we put in our communications together. It's also important for us to keep our ears on the ground. Media monitoring and social listening tools are important during situations like this. What is required is real-time data on the frequency of online conversations, which definitely have become very, very intensive around this time. So what is the frequency? What is the velocity of these conversations? And what is the force of it? Talking about velocity and force reminds me of my days in science class, and it's interesting to be applying science to communications. What is the frequency of online conversation? What is the velocity? What is the force? Increased digital and other types of conversations online require an improved analytics and measurement of not just what is being discussed in terms of the text, but also the kinds of image and videos that are being shared online. How do we measure them? How do we analyze them in order to get the pulse of what is happening among our audience and our stakeholders? Less commercial value is what is required at this time, and more of accurate information. So, leads me to the next aspect of this presentation, and that is, what should brands communicate? I think at this point in time, brands will need to avoid insensitivity and opportunism. Okay, should brands still communicate? I say yes. It is best to ensure that we keep our communication going, bearing in mind the context in which we are, and tailoring our communication to suit the context of the pandemic. Some brands have chosen to stay silent. Indeed, at this point in time, if you've gotten nothing to say that is supportive of the context, don't say it. Not every brand can do something about COVID-19. Not every brand messaging can be supportive of COVID-19. Those brands that cannot support this pandemic through their messaging must certainly remain silent in this circumstance. Definitely, that would be better than communicating as if it is business as usual. In addition to that, in our communication, we need to be useful, not clever. Useful, not clever. I will explain what I mean by that. Brands that elect to communicate must sense, check, and align their messaging to what is happening around them. They ought to be helpful. They ought to be promotional of the current situation. They ought to be supportive of it, and that is being useful. It is not about communicating about your product and about your services. Particularly, there's very little linkage between what you do and how it supports resolving the pandemic. Be measured in communicating good deeds as well. Of course, a lot of brands, a lot of corporate organizations are supporting the effort to mitigate this situation in diverse ways. But be very circumspect about how you communicate that support, else it switches to self-promotion, which can be critical to your image and reputation. It's not all gloomy. I mean, opportunity exists within the context in which we are, and particularly for brands. I mean, business to business, industry, trade, publications, and so the media is still alive. Journalists are still working as normal, and they are hungry for news as always. It is cooler to place stories at the moment because, to a very large extent, public relations has been isolated and quarantined. And so there's a lot of opportunity to place stories. Then ask yourself, what is the narrative? What story am I telling? What is the balance of that story in the current context? And what level of sensitivity am I applying to the messaging that is contained in that story? Brands need not to wait until COVID-19 to accelerate communication, because as soon as the focus of this crisis moves into the post-crisis era, we as communicators, big brands, must be ready to be bolder. Brands which approach their communications with care, with integrity and purpose now will emerge from the crisis with the credibility needed to thrive in the post-COVID era. It is not business as usual. That must be said very clearly. COVID-19 communication should begin with the understanding that people are apprehensive, worried, confused. That must be incorporated in brand messages. Otherwise, as I said earlier, silence is golden. It will help to hit the pass button on ongoing campaigns and assess if they are still relevant to the current context. If your answer is no, then it is time to swing. A lot of empathy is needed around this time. Effective communications in this time must show empathy. Before sharing any message as a brand, think about how your stakeholders will interpret it. A good judgment for message demands thinking about what people need most right now. It is not about what you do normally or produce. It is about some comfort in the madness in which we find ourselves. And brands that will provide that comfort would find success in the current storm. This is not a time to sell. Overreaching sales pitch will result in people ditching brands. Brands should aim for valuable insights and information from reliable sources that will help them change perceptions about their entire personality. Those who blunder may suffer, and brands must position these times in a very positive way. And in so doing, brands need to ensure that their relationship with their customers, with their stakeholders, move beyond just the transactional. Customers' engagement with digital content will explode around this time. I believe it has exploded already. Staying home and social distances will lead to a spike in content consumption. Brands that create messages of valuable insights and information will win big time. Those who deploy messages to genuinely connect with customers will inherit long-lasting relationships. Messaging without the motive, without the intention to profit off a pandemic is a fine balance that we should be looking at striking. And brands must show at this time that the customer is more than just a transaction. What are the marketing mix that we need to be looking at in this pandemic? I mean, let's look at a few communication marketing mix. In fact, brand communication during crisis must have a creative mix that is more personal and addresses the changing needs. It is about providing lasting value by being proactive, present, and having a long-term outlook to communicate authentically. Let's look at some of the communication mixes that we can deploy. Advertising around this time, a very dicey one, not very useful. We are not in a competition at this time. These are not normal times for competition. It's only when your advertising has a lot to do with providing comfort for those who find themselves in this discomfort. Personal marketing, pandemics are not the time for this, especially when they are not linked to the context, to the anxieties, to the concerns, to the worry that people are experiencing. Sales promotion, we need to be very careful, and it has to be done with sensitivity and balance. Indeed, there are those products, there are those services that offer a lot of support for the context in which we are, and those must definitely be promoted, but they should be done sensitively in order that you don't sound offensive and opportunistic in this context. But again, looking at the traditional marketing mix in this context, because the question is marketing communication, which marketing communication mixes are useful in this context? We have our traditional marketing mix, the 7 P's. Products, of course, yes. Products have to be relevant. They have to have an appeal and a demand in the context in which we are. So product as a marketing mix currently very, very relevant. Physical evidence, why not? Online presence, social media visibility, being supportive of the process, communicating messages of hope and optimism, definitely. Place, convenience and access. We are in a situation in which people are discomfort. They want a lot of convenience. They want a lot of access. So if your products and services are placed in such a way that it offers convenience and access, definitely go for it. And what about price? Prices should be supportive. I indicated earlier that we shouldn't appear to be transactional with our customers at this point in time. There are different products and different services that are using different price mechanisms as a way of supporting the mitigation of the pandemic. If that is the marketing mix that you are looking at to support your communication, definitely yes. And that feeds into promotion. And let me talk briefly about people. And when I talk about people, I'm talking about both our internal stakeholders and our external stakeholders. What are we communicating to them? Are we being transparent? Are we being factual? Are we telling our staff that don't worry, there wouldn't be any layoffs, only to spring that surprise on them post the pandemic? What about your customers? What messages are you sharing with them? To what extent is your organization communicating with them, giving them hope, giving them optimism, giving them confidence? What is the role of your CEO in all this? How is he or she communicating in this context? A few tips and then I would conclude. Look, we need to be factual and tell the issues, tell the story as they are without spinning them. We need to choose our words carefully in this context, avoid emotionally charged phrases. Let's be reassuring, let's offer hope, let's make lemonade out of lemons. Let's make lemonade out of lemons. Have a communication high command as an organization, as a brand, as a PR department, and make sure that there is consistency in what you communicate. And voices of reasons must prevail. Be straightforward, be clear, be optimistic. Indeed, hashtags have become even more trendy in these days. How are we going to use hashtags to communicate the key messages that we want to share with our customers that offer succor and comfort? We need to use the right terminologies as well and adapt our messages, okay? Acknowledging how others are feeling, help the community, seize the opportunity it presents to rebuild our brand. We have to utilize social media more than ever before. That is where people are in their lockdown situation. We also need to focus on thought leadership. What are our CEOs saying at this point in time that supports the mitigation and that feeds into the organizational messaging? What about CEO letters to clients? We need to keep the post-COVID future in view. And with this, I will conclude by saying that our focus as PR and marketing practitioners in this context should be on the era after COVID-19. What do we want to achieve now? And what do we want to achieve in the post-crisis era? We must recognize the opportunity that COVID-19 offers us to connect like never before with our customers and with our stakeholders, and most importantly, to prove that our organization is more than just a company. It is a humane brand. Brands that communicate well, brands that focus on these messages are the brands that would carry the future post this era. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gerhard. Your 20 minutes is right on spot. So it's now time for some questions. If you would like to ask questions, please raise your hand. You'll find that on the panel below. You raise your hand and then we'll call you to ask your question. You can also check out the Q&A session where you can actually type your questions and then I will read it out to Gerhard so that he would answer. Please also note that all those who registered for this webinar, you will receive the presentations of our panelists in your email. We have a question here from Eunice Dede, and she's asking that my question is around not seeming opportunistic within these times as a brand based on your recommendation. How will an agric firm, for example, communicate in these times, say on billboards especially, because people still need to keep food on the table and farmers ought to also keep planting? Gerhard.
Thank you very much, Dede. An agric firm, it will depend a lot on the kind of products and services that the firm offers. No matter what it is, the most important thing is for the firm to identify what is the need in the context in which we find ourselves that they can help meet. And as I said, this need should not be commercially focused. It should be focused at helping to relieve the majority of people who find themselves in a confused state, in a state of want, and some even in states of deprivation. The messaging that accompanies that product and services should be that type of message that offers comfort, that offers support, and that shows that my firm, which is engaged in agricultural activities, at this point in time is not only thinking about profitability, but I'm also thinking about what I can do to contribute to mitigate the current situation.
All right, Alfred, I see that you raise your hands. Please click on your mic and ask your question, and then Gerhard will answer. Hello, Alfred. I see you are typing, so you would like to ask your question by typing. Is that so? So we'll wait for your question, Alfred. You mentioned that firms should begin to give information that is relevant and has appeal to their clients. In case the business doesn't have products or services that are relevant in this COVID-19 era, what do? Do they just keep mute and sit down until this is over? Won't their brand lose value, or people forget that brand?
It is in such areas that you need innovators, that you need PR and marketing professionals that think out of the box. And so a lot of thinking, a lot of innovation should go into what is it that we communicate. And by that, I mean a critical look at your brand, a critical look at your product and services, and how you can reposition what you do in such a way that it supports the current context. I did also admit that it is not every brand that can support this situation at this point in time. Brands that are not in the position to support, I think it is better for those brands to keep silent. We are not in the best of times. If you come across as being opportunistic, or you come across as being business as usual when the world is in a pandemic. It has dire reputational risk. And so if you cannot communicate in a way that supports the process, and you cannot communicate in a way that shows that you are concerned about what is going on, the best is for you to remain silent.
All right, we have an anonymous attendee has a question. How do you think an e-commerce platform that sells fashion products will communicate effectively to their audience?
This is an interesting one. Interesting because we are in a context that seems to be jettisoned in fashion, okay? We are in a context in which people are celebrating the extent to which they look disheveled. We are in a context in which people are celebrating, call it natural beauty. I have seen a few posts of people, of celebrities, showing their faces without their makeups. A very difficult time to start talking about fashion, I should say. Who is going out? Who is attending a dinner? Who is going to an entertainment program? These are some of the brands that are difficult to communicate at this point in time. I do remember clearly, there is this company, I think in the US, that manufactures footwear. And what they are doing at this time is manufacturing that kind of footwear that will be used by health workers and donating it to the health workers. That is what I mean by rethinking about what you do and repositioning it in such a way that it is supportive of the current process. If you are into fashion and you can start producing some of the apparels that are required by the health workers, great thing to think about.
All right, we have Benicia, and he is asking, how will a life insurance company sales staff communicate effectively to prospective clients in times like this?
A life insurance company?
Yes.
Okay. Pandemic, yes, the world hasn't come to an end. What is it that we are doing around this time that we need to protect? Insurance is a way of ensuring that collectively we take responsibility for protection and for safety. The life insurance company need to look at what some of the concerns the majority of people have today. There are concerns about loss of jobs. There are concerns about income. There are concerns about education. How can the products and services of the insurance company be positioned in such a way that those who are interested in going for a life insurance will see in those products and services an opportunity of relief in the current situation in which they find themselves? These are issues that can be brainstormed, and I believe we'll be able to get to the right conclusion if we go through a brainstorm session.
Bakwan Asante, I think you asked a similar question. I hope you got your answer from this. Mesa Joseph is asking, considering how it is important to keep stakeholders informed, Mesa Joseph, your question is not complete. So I would move on to Bridget. She's asking, how should a brand remain humane when communicating staff layoffs? Because we know this is already happening in some companies.
Difficult one. There is very little doses of humanitarian gesture in instances of layoff, okay? But there is also a way of mitigating the impact. I think what brands should do is to interrogate the context in which we find ourselves, try to establish what is it that staff who find themselves in situations of redundancy can devote their time to in a way that is profitable and in a way also that feeds into their passion. I think it's also about positioning such redundancies in such a way that it eases off the pressure. For instance, what are the social and psychological networks that you create around the redundancy in terms of retraining, in terms of advice, in terms of direction, in terms of financial in terms of investment. These are the totality of package that should go into any redundancy situation in order to make it humane. It's not just about handing over a letter and a check. It's about providing those affected with some ideas, some avenues as to what they could be doing next in a situation that is about to befall them.
Okay, we have just 5 minutes to end this Q&A session and move on to our next presenter. Mensa Joseph is asking, thanks for the great presentation, Gerhard. I want to inquire if communicating change in leadership, i.e. new CEO, is right for these times, especially when it has nothing to do with COVID-19. However, important stakeholders need to be informed.
I would say that I don't see anything wrong with a change in leadership at this point in time. It's about how it is communicated and how stakeholders are engaged about it. If leadership must go, for heaven's sake, leadership must go. If a refreshness is required, yes, there should be that refreshness. I think the dicey issue is that it is not just about the change, it is about the socialization around the change. It's about the communication around the change. So the challenge will be, how do you communicate to staff? How do you communicate to stakeholders? How do you ensure that there is a seamless process that does not aggravate the impact of COVID-19 on the organization? For me, that is where the challenge is.
All right, Cassandra Chumampofo says, Gerhard, you indicated that not all brands can do something during this pandemic, and that is if you don't have anything to communicate, do not. If so, will it not affect your stakeholders? Will they not have some apathy towards your brand? How then can you keep up with your stakeholders? I think he already answered this question because I did put this question to him. So we'll move to Aisha, to Zakaria, and she's asking, what should brands that are not financially stable but are pressured to perform their social responsibilities do in this era?
My quick question will be, why would a brand be pressured to do its corporate social responsibility? Because the understanding of corporate social responsibility is about an intervention that feeds into your corporate vision. Is about an intervention that supports the community whilst it is supporting you. And so I don't see any pressure in there. Look, every brand, whether it's products or services, need the presence of human beings in order to ensure the perpetuation of the brand, in order to be able to ensure patronage for your brand. Any activity that goes to support the livelihoods, that goes to protect the health of your potential customers, of your potential stakeholders, should not be seen as pressure. Indeed, decisions about support are taken in the context of budget. And I believe this organization has astute management in place that is very much aware of the fact that beyond a certain limit of support, that definitely is beyond our organization. Those are the thoughts that is without feeling pressured.
All right, a final question for Kwanze. What are some of the thought leadership issues that organizations should tackle? And also, per your experience, what are your thoughts on how organizations in Ghana have behaved during this pandemic, so not to be seen to be leveraging on the crisis for cheap publicity?
So thought leadership issues, a lot of activity online. And so topics for thought leadership can be topics that focus on the criticality of online engagement at this point in time. Issues about analytics could be a very important thought leadership topic for discussion. Issues about online sales, online marketing, issues about online PR. I mean, public relations is moving from the traditional media onto the social media. And so thought leadership on how to position PR within the context of the rush in online activities can also be a very good topic to look at. So is the entire issue about health, topics on health, topics on public healthcare systems, topics on how to manage different aspects of contagious diseases, and then also topics on banking and finance. What do you do around this time in order to avoid going into the banking hall? So these are areas where you can have topics on which you can lead discussions and make your brand relevant to your stakeholders.
Okay, we still have a few more minutes, so I would ask a few more questions before we invite our next speaker. Hi, my name is Ken. I want to find out how can sports brand continue to stay relevant in this period, looking at the shutdown of sporting activities?
Very difficult. We are not in normal times. You wouldn't expect everything to run in a normal way. There are some aspects of our lives that we would need to revisit and revamp, and those aspects particularly that have to do with social gatherings. I mean, the same question can be asked about, call it funeral merchandise or party merchandise. What will become of brands that support such activities? My answer is very difficult time for such brands. Again, think about how you can redirect your brand in a way that is supportive of the current situation. To just add to the question from Cassandra, the fact is that brands that remain completely silent would find it difficult to reactivate themselves post the pandemic. And that is why I said it is about thinking about what is it that you can do to support the current context. Think out of the box. If you are into education, what is it that can be done within the context of education that supports this process? Communicate about it. Develop messages about them. However, as I said, there are some brands that would find it difficult to reposition themselves in this era. And for such brands, the wrong thing to do is to communicate as if it is business as usual. The wrong thing to do is to communicate and come across as crass and opportunistic. In such circumstance, silence is golden.
Infinix Hot 8, you should have written your name, says, what should be the exact and precise answer to a client who is doubting sustainability and survival of an existing company as a result of COVID-19?
I guess a direct answer to such a client would be that the most important thing is the fact that there is a process that is working towards containing the pandemic, okay? At least the issue of social distancing and all the protocols of hand washing and all that has proven to be very, very responsive in terms of containing the pandemic. And so it is not all gloom about the pandemic. Sustainability is at the base of the challenge in which we find ourselves. But the issue of sustainability will come with a fair amount of impact on lives, impact on jobs, impact on purchasing power. Those impacts would be there. There would be a fair amount of impact on economic growth. There will be a fair amount of impact on business opportunities. Yes, but in terms of sustainability, a lot will depend upon how we pick ourselves as brands, as entrepreneurs, as organizations, out of the ashes and prepare for the post-COVID era. And that preparation will not start in the post-COVID era. It starts today.
Thank you, Gerhard, for your time this morning. Raymond Ayeseli, Alfred, Neneso Abloso, I see that you raise your hands. Don't worry. Please, for now, we are not taking audio questions, so just go to the Q&A part. You see it right there on your computer or phone, and then ask your question there. If your question hasn't been answered, don't worry. We would answer them on a person-to-person basis in your email. So do drop your email addresses as well. We are moving on to our next speaker, Ahuma Kabute, and he is going to tell us the do's and don'ts of brands during the pandemic and also future outlook for brands and marketing.
Hello, Fatih. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. I don't know if I am, if it's just my voice which is being heard right now, or you can see me and have the ability to share my screen.
I can hear you clearly, so you can start with your presentation, and then you have 20 minutes, and you would have 15 minutes to answer questions from our attendees or participants.
Okay, right, that's fine. Hold on, let me just. Is my screen visible now?
We see your presentation.
Okay, you can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, so hello everyone and good morning, and thank you for the introduction, Fatih. So my presentation is going to focus on these 4 topics. First, to give a perspective of what marketing is during this COVID-19 period, and then also to look at research, basically to understand consumer trends, and then I'll look at possible winning angles for some brands, and then we'll talk about the digital boom that everybody's talking about and how it plays into the marketing mix. The reason why I decided to pick this approach is, aside the team from GMA sending me questions to guide the presentation, there's been a lot of talk about what is marketing during this period or what marketing is supposed to do. So my question, and a lot of people have asked me this question, so should there be a new approach totally for marketing during COVID-19? And it depends on where you are looking at marketing from and where you have come from. So let's look at the whole context of COVID-19, and then we'll zoom into marketing and try and understand whether there's a new approach for marketing and what we should be doing differently and how as brands we can win. Okay. So somewhere earlier on this year, everybody was hit with the news of Corona. It basically brought a new context. A lot of companies were immediately asked to stop. There were immediate restrictions on us, and a lot of companies asked their staff to work home. And we've had daily repeated communications, daily repeated press briefings from both the Ministry of Information and both the presidencies. There's a lot of talk about washing hands, using alcohol, social distances, exercising. It has presented a whole new context. Within this context that people are trying to understand. So as a marketer, as a brand owner, as a brand, what do I do within this context to make sure that my brand, one, maybe still remains relevant, 2, maybe I'm still being able to make some sales, and 3, I'm able to predict for the future what actions to take. But I want us to start by really understanding marketing and looking at marketing from a certain perspective, because it boils down into the decisions you take and how you are able to make or win in this situation. So let's think about it. The markets, which basically defines market as 2 major players. There's the buyer and there's the seller. In every marketing instance, there's someone who is buying and someone who is selling. And both these 2 players are all working on one important thing, that's the product or the brand. And this brand is an image or perception that has been created mainly by the seller, so that when you come into the market, you are likely to pick his brand or his product over other brands. So it's more like a perception. He's put out a lot of communication, then he's put out a lot of information. You have this perceived ideology, you have this perception about the brand, and that makes you want to pick his brand over other brands. And how do they achieve, or how do marketers achieve you getting this preferred perception of your brand? It's mainly by using the marketing piece, which are core functions of marketing. So it's a combination of the place, the product, the price, the people, all the P's you know. But for this conversation purpose, I'll limit it just to the 4 P's as I expand, because I feel those are more or less like the first principle of marketing. So the question is, okay, so they are selling in the market, the buyers in the market, we are all trying to build the right brand, and the marketers are trying to, and the sellers are trying to achieve this right brand by playing with these 4 P's just to make you, the consumer, happy or pick their brand over other brands. But what has marketing been over the last decade? And the reason why it's important to understand how marketing has been over the last decade is it plays into the perspective of this new context we are in. So over the last decade, marketing has basically shifted to be consumer-centric, or to be focused more on the consumer. So everything marketing does now is about the consumer. It's about the person using the product, the person using the service. So if you think about it, the first question you need to be asking yourself in this COVID-19 period, if you're a marketer and you're asking yourself what you should do, is what is the consumer's reaction to this new context that has been presented to the consumer? So basically, the consumer marketer has been building products that satisfy the consumer needs, always trying to get insight from the consumer, learning about their new behaviors, learning about their new actions, learning about what is pleasing to them, just to make sure that your marketing satisfies them. The other thing about the consumer we've realized in this recent decade is the consumer, he likes to think of himself as rational, but a lot of the decisions he makes are very, 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 very emotional. So again, you need to be thinking about COVID-19 and the state and asking yourself, what is the emotional state of mind of the consumer you are trying to reach to? The other thing is, even though the consumer is emotional, and you most likely will try to reach him in a more emotional way, your product needs to function and needs to function at optimal levels. Consumers will give you some slack if your product doesn't meet all the right requirements, but at least a lot of research has shown that consumers expect your product to be more than 70% functional. So at least once you've crossed that mark, consumers can give you some slack, but they do expect that when I buy this product, I'm getting value, first emotional value, but also functionally, the product will deliver on what is said it will deliver. So, still talking about the consumer, because the consumer is the one all our brands, all our marketing effort, all our communication effort is focused on in this period. I took out this slide because it's very important, and it's very important to recent happenings in marketing. And there's something that in the economic language we've been talking about, and this is consumer sovereignty. So this consumer sovereignty basically speaks to what I was just talking about, that every important development in understanding the market economy is based on the consumer. Producers are only producing to what the consumer choices are. Nobody is producing things that do not reflect the consumer need. So it's very important that you bear this in mind. You have to think about marketing and have to think about COVID-19 and the new state of mind of the consumer. So for me, to understand what marketing should be in this period, one of the first questions I ask myself is, what is the research saying? What is the current state of the consumer? What are the consumer trends? Because like we already discussed, marketing is now about the consumer. So to understand how to market and to understand how to win, you have to look at the consumer, you have to look at his new attitudes, you have to look at his new behavior within this COVID-19 period. Then you'll be better placed to say, okay, I need to take A, B, C, D to be able to get or to be able to continue my sales. So what is the research saying about consumer in relation to COVID-19? And I picked this from a lot of research that various organizations have put out there just to help us shape and get a proper idea of what the consumer is doing. So one of the first ones I picked out was from KPMG. They put out this statement somewhere in April just talking about the consumer in Ghana and how the consumer is reacting. And some of the key things they had said was there's a steep increase in demand for essential products, and we need to bear that in mind. So one of the things we need to know right now is consumers are looking for essential products. And the reason why they are doing that is because at the start there was this panic buying, and everybody was feeling that, okay, if I do not get hold of these essential products, I may lose out, or I may be cut out in my home and I may need this product and not be able to get it. I remember very early in the days of COVID-19, a friend called me and asked me about the panic buying outside and the relation to the Ghana market. And I quickly told him that, no, the Ghana market is very, very fragmented. It's very different from the markets you see outside. So I honestly do not expect there to be shortage. Yes, we would have the initial panic buying because consumers learn from each other. Consumers react the same way. They heard there's a panic. One of the things they do is, let me quickly grab my essential items and stay in my home so that I'm safe from this COVID-19. But the question was it going to translate to the same, was it going to say the same reaction in the Ghana market as in shortage? I didn't think so. And over time, we've realized that our market is so fragmented that we are not seeing the kind of shortages we saw in the foreign market. Okay, so another thing the KPMG research talked about was the demand for delivery through e-commerce channel. I think Gerhard mentioned it, and everybody is just talking about e-commerce, everybody is talking about digital. It becomes the biggest player for this context, I mean, in terms of COVID-19. Zoom, which we are currently using, announced a market share rise of over 200% just within the last 30 days. So you should see the impact the rush for digital services over this period just because COVID-19 has some restrictions that have made people feel the need. The other thing is there's less demand for non-essential products. And during the questioning time, someone was asking me about fashion and asking other people came out with all kinds of products, asking questions like, what should I do as a brand? One of the things you need to remember or you need to be asking yourself at this time is what category do you sit in? Are you an essential product or a non-essential product? And then you need to understand how can I work around it depending on where I sit. So for the non-essential products, definitely there's less demand for it. Again, there's been change in the operations of the market. A lot of, depending on the sector, some have closed down. A lot of you have realized that bars and social outing or public gathering places have been closed down. So that means there's a direct effect on that on the products and services we use there. Some banks have reduced their shopping hours. The retail market has changed drastically. Not everybody is open. So there's a change in the retail outlet. So again, you need to be thinking about that, and that's one of the things that's affecting the consumer. And there's also the talk of disruption of raw materials, especially in a country like Ghana, where because of economy and things, some of the large manufacturing companies do not produce in Ghana. The question is, has it affected their raw material supply? Are they just latching on stock they had built previously? What happens going forward? Also, there's the mention of the likely job losses and salary cuts because there's no consumer spending, so a lot of companies are not going to be getting the revenues and incomes they have. So this is one of the pictures of the consumer we have in this COVID-19 period. There's more research that this research comes from Ipsos, and we're talking about government's action and the kind of societal presence we see. So one of the things they talked about is quarantine. I mean, for a long time, even Ghana here had been on quarantine. In just a few weeks, I mean that we've moved into partial quarantine. Schools are still closed, and a lot of people are practicing self-isolation. People are doing social distancing, when we meet people are trying to keep distances, and there's still a lockdown of a lot of places, and all these are leading to, like I mentioned, social distancing. Ipsos further talks about what is happening in the consumer space because of some of these actions. People are more at home, so it means a lot more family time together. And this is not just for the app markets, even when you go to the low market or the very rural areas, because people are not going out like they usually do, there's a lot of family time, there's a lot of individual time for yourself, but also there is a lot of stress and anxiety. And it's a very important state of mind of the consumer right now, where the consumer is under a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, not sure what the next steps are, not sure what's happening. So as a brand, you need to understand all of these, and you need to understand this consumer mindset as of now. And this also further continues to talk about the impact of some of these consumer behaviors in the categories. And talking about a change in physical retail, talking about the effect on the alcoholic beverage industry, talking about the effect on consumer tourism, talking about big ticket items like cars and luxury goods. A few days ago, I went to one of the car dealers to talk to him, just a friend of mine, just to understand how business was. And I was surprised for him to tell me that people are coming up asking for deals to buy cars, especially the middle income people. It just shows that shift in consumer in the mindset. And people are now scared of sitting in public transport because of COVID-19. So those who have the means are exploring other opportunities. Can I buy a car now? Can I use a car now? So we need to understand that as a brand or as a marketing person, a lot of the things you do are based on on the consumer and how the consumer is reacting during this period. Again, Noah Brown, and now part of the counter group, did some research to understand what consumers within the West Africa region expect from companies and brands within this period. And it was interesting to note, in Ghana, for instance, about 26% of the people said they expect the companies to have, or more or less, have a call to duty to help. So they are not, this is not the time they feel like brands should leave them out there. They feel that this time brands should be taking actions. They should be doing a lot of things that help them on a daily basis. And the brands need to be pragmatic and they need to be realistic in their actions and the things they are doing. So 26% of Ghanaians said that in relation to brands. Sorry, just going back, the question there was, in your opinion, in the context of coronavirus, what attitude should companies and brands show to help you? And this is what the consumers in Ghana said. The other question was in the opinion and context of coronavirus. What attitude should end? Okay, so this was the second point, the next highest point. And this was taken within the West African region, so the scores vary and show the different countries. Again, 50% of Ghanaians, more higher in Ghana region, said they expect the companies not just to help them, but to help the community as a whole. So right now, whatever you are doing is not just about me, but it's about the entire community. It's about building a better world, building a better society. So again, these are all indications of what the consumer mindset is in relation to COVID-19, in relation to the information we're getting, in relation to some of the directions that have been put out. Geopost 2 did a survey across the sub-Saharan region, that's from Kenya right down to Ghana, just to understand the changes in consumer shopping behavior. And it was interesting to note that in terms of food shopping, 60% of people are shopping less. 20% of the people are shopping more. And about 21% said there's no change in the way we shop. In terms of the purchase of non-essential goods, and we realize that 69% of the people are purchasing less. 16% are purchasing more, and 15% are purchasing, and 15% have no change. So these are all statistics just to give you a sense of the consumer state of mind, the consumer behavior as it is right now in this COVID-19 period. Again, in terms of media consumption, there's a drastic change in media consumption. Well, we had about 66% of consumers saying that they are consuming more media than before. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to it. And people are more in their houses. So whereas first, for instance, radio, people listen to radio on their way to work, get out and get to their office and sit in the office to work. Now, a lot more people are listening to radio in their homes. A lot more people have television on. A lot more people have different types of media on. So 66% of consumers are consuming more media. So again, you need to know where the consumer is sitting within this space. And then when asked for the sources of information and their media consumption habits, TV became the highest, and I think it's because predominantly now everybody just leaves their TV on because they are home and they walk around, whether it's Netflix, whether it's a local TV channel, they come around intermittently to see what's happening, or they sit down and TV just on. Social media has overtaken radio. I mean, that's typically expected. Everybody is on social media because they are looking for ways to socially connect as they are home. We have about 40% across in the sub-Saharan region saying they use social media for information. Radio 39%. Surprisingly, government messages is about 29%, and that's to show you that people are listening to government, but it is not considered as one of the prominent information sources. They rather look out for it on television or radio, where they feel the mediums are more trustworthy. Newspaper 15%, and that's not surprising. I don't know whether some of you are aware. And recently I reached out to BFT and they told me that they have reduced their publication to twice a week. That's because a lot of people are not buying a lot of newspapers. And I think I can understand because people feel that newspapers are a very fiscal thing. We are buying commercialized. And with all this education about social distancing, washing your hand, be careful of surfaces you touch, and we have seen a drastic reduction in newspaper as a source of information. And family and friends also has seen a drastic reduction. So this is where, again, as a marketer or as a brand person, you should be thinking if you need to find your consumers or if you need to communicate to them. So based on this information, I try to paint a portrait of who the consumer is within this COVID-19 period. So I look at it under 6 key categories: lifestyle, shopping, financial, entertainment, political, and media habits. And from the research, you realize that in terms of lifestyle, everybody is looking at taking preventive measures. And I'm sure among yourselves, you are taking your own preventive measures. Some people are taking vitamin C on a daily basis. We see videos on the net and on TVs where people say they are drinking alcohol because they think it's a way of prevention. It's not the right thing, but that's what they said. We've seen people isolating, staying at home, working from home. A lot of people are taking action on their lifestyles that make sure that whatever approach there is very preventive. In terms of shopping, we saw a lot of data that spoke to the fact that people are buying essentials only. So people are looking at their list and asking themselves, what do I really need? What is critical for me at this time at home? If your product or service does not fall in that essential service, you are one of the people that are immediately cutting off. Again, we saw that a lot of people are relying on e-commerce. A lot of people are doing bulk buy. This bulk buy speaks to the reason why we see lesser people doing shopping. So what is happening now is people rather go buy in bulk and they stay at home so that they don't have to go frequently. And then people are looking at alternative shops. And when people go to places and they feel that this place is too crowded, they probably will look for alternatives to buy where they feel there are more preventive measures. In terms of financials, a lot of people are distressed. It could be because you have lost your job, or it could be because there's been salary cuts. But then again, there are some people too who say they are making savings, and I think this savings comes from the fact that some people are staying at home, they are not using much fuel, or they are not going through the regular things they do for, and that drives expenses, so they're able to make some savings. In terms of entertainment, social media rules predominant, TV also is there, and for the upper class, we've seen a lot of people getting onto Netflix. Netflix recently reported that their numbers in Africa usage has significantly increased. In terms of political mindset, and the bias remains unchanged, and a lot of people are still holding strongly to their political views. The government hasn't been seen as one of the reliable places for information. When they bring information, we've all seen both parties either disputing the information or people from the particular party supporting the information. And in terms of media habits, like you said, it's TV, more digital and less print. So this is the consumer you should be talking to, and these are the things you need to bear in mind as you talk to a consumer around this time. So my question is, okay, so all this information about the consumer, what can we do as brands to make sure that we are winning, at least we are able to push the needle? And for brands, I mean, irrespective of the time, one of the key questions you will ask yourself is, how do I survive? How do I make sure that this COVID-19 doesn't kill my brand? So what can we do to push the middle? And a lot of what I propose here is based on learnings and experience and what the consumer research has said. So before that, let me just show you what some of the brands are doing in Ghana. We've seen a lot of donation towards the COVID-19 relief center. One particular example is Roma, plenty companies just making the news every day. And surprisingly, just by Roma is Lechebu, where constantly they are putting out new information as to how to be able to access microfinance by staying at home. We've introduced new shop. So constantly brands are putting out information about COVID-19. If you look at brands like MTN, I don't know if you've been to any of MTN's social media pages recently. They've been pushing this product called Ayuba. I think it's a product in partnership with MTN where you can get constant up-to-date information on the coronavirus. And also they've been pushing data. They've been pushing data because now we know a lot of people are home. There's a lot of data consumption. So MTN has also started voicing out the fact that we have the flexi data which never expires. If you go to the Vodafone page, it's the same kind of information. Stay at home, stay connected. All these brands are putting out information that's related to COVID-19 and asking you to take action, stay at home to ensure that your personal health is not compromised. Outside, we saw unique ways of some of these brands expressing it. I don't know how many of you look at what brands are doing outside. For instance, McDonald's, a very popular brand in the US, the food tree, the fast food joint, separated their rolling ads just to express the social distancing. We saw Aldi do the same thing. We saw the same VW do the same thing. And even Nike has recently put this campaign out where they say, if you ever dreamed of playing for millions around the world, now is your chance. Play inside, play for the world. All saying stay at home. And a lot of brands have capitalized on this COVID-19 period and are putting out messages related to the COVID-19, and in some instances tweaking their brand and tweaking the core position of their brand to reflect COVID-19 messages. In Ghana, we've also seen some interesting insights here, and this is not just in Ghana. I mean, globally, a lot of brands too have been able to start producing new products that they currently weren't doing. For instance, I have here the example of Casapreco and Bimo, both distillery companies, which have started producing rubbing alcohol and hand sanitizers just for the COVID-19 period. So all these are giving us perceptions as to how the brands are taking information on the new consumer behaviors and what actions they are putting in place just to remain relevant to these consumers. Farm milk is also, doing some surprisingly interesting thing where now when you order a minimum of 20 series, they're able to deliver your house once you're in Accra, Tema, Kaswa. We also have partnered with Jumia Food, and they are doing delivery of farm milk products or farm ice products through Jumia Food. There are some videos here I would have shown that I think there's not so much time, so I'll just move on. But basically, one of these videos, and I don't know how many of you have seen it, is from the Ghana Tourism Authority, where they talk about stay at home and experience Ghana. So it's a very interesting video, and they show you that, look, you can stay at home, but there is post-COVID-19 where you can get out to experience Ghana some more. Accra Marriott Hotel too has a very similar hotel, very similar video on their Facebook page talking about the fact that they're taking drastic measures to ensure that they are your health and safety is their major concern. They are more than cleaning on a regular basis, so they have welcoming doors. And if you never need to step out post COVID-19 period, that's the hotel you need to come to. So brands have been forward thinking, brands have been taking immediate action, brands have been responsive to the current trends. The question is, what can you do as a brand to make sure you're winning? So I guess we had some 5 points based on the research and some of what we've seen brands doing right now. One of the first things you must do as a brand in this period is aim to build more brand love. And what is brand love? Brand love basically speaks about building empathy for your brand, building confidence for your brand, where people are able to connect with your brand in a different way than they have previously connected. And you should do this with all your tools at your disposal. A lot of brands are doing it. Coca-Cola recently in one of these African countries moved all their marketing spend from their products to talk about COVID-19. And at the end, they say this message is brought to you by Coca-Cola. What they are doing is telling you that they understand your state of mind right now, they understand your fear, they are with you, and they are bringing you relevant information on how to stay safe around this COVID-19 period. So that's one of the things you need to think about, whether you're a big brand, whether you're a small brand. At least you can come out and say, stay at home as simply as Vodafone did, or if you feel you can offer a service related to that, or you can do something to build more love for your brand, you need to really consider it at this time. The other thing you need to ask yourself is, am I an essential product or service? And this is very, very, very important. The reason being is, as a brand, you need to know whether consumers have a preference for your category at every point in time. Right now, the context of the consumer has changed. He's sitting at home, he's looking at only essential services. And you need to strategize depending on where you sit on how to react to the new consumer. So, if you are an essential service, most likely, a lot of the essential services will tell you, like for instance, the pharmacies, those will be providing hand sanitizers, those providing disinfectant, or anything of the sort that is known to keep personal safety for COVID-19 will tell you that they have seen an increase in their volumes. Sales is booming for them. And even with the telco industry where data have become the new king, how people sitting there, we've seen substantial growth. But as a in these categories, one of the first things you should be asking yourself is, okay, so what else can I achieve more than this volume growth? Right now, the volume growth can be described as organic because the context has led to that increase in volume. But the question is, what can you do to drive an increase in the volume growth? Very recently, I was speaking to one of my friends in the very essential service who said, oh, they were trying to launch a campaign, and I was like, a promotion at this time. You're already in the essential service. You're already getting the volumes. Why do you want to increase your volume? And why are you not looking out for something? And then she said to me that, okay, yes, we are getting the volumes, but we feel that our brand is still not known. People are still referring to our brand by some category name. You know how in Ghana, for instance, all toothpaste is called Pepsodent, or all disinfectant is called Dettol. So the plan is, how can we ensure that our category leverages and gets more than the volume growth? Another thing you need to think about is, if you are not in the essential service or product, you need to ask yourself, what is my portfolio of products? Is there a product that is essential? How can we leverage on this product to drive growth? And you see it a lot with the telcos. Now, all the telcos are talking about data. MTN is talking about data, giving a lot of zero-rated sites where basically you can go to those sites and enjoy free, and then they are giving all sorts of data promotion. It's because they feel that is the key product within this context. So their question is, how do I leverage on data to continuously drive growth? And for brands who feel they can really tie in the other products and services, you can do some combo packaging just to drive it. So for instance, if, let's say, you are a fashion designer and you are thinking of, okay, I'm not an essential service right now, how do I drive my product? Or you can look within your portfolio. Okay, so maybe you have face mask and you have clothes. So maybe the decision is, for every cloth I sell, you get a face mask. So you need to leverage on some of these things. Or you advertise your face mask and say, once you buy this face mask, or it's a total package, buy this face mask with my clothes. So you need to also be thinking about that. We've seen big firms like Casapelco, Pivot, And this is a major pivot. A company that is known for producing alcohol, because all the nightclubs and bars and all the places where initially they would have sold their products have been asked to close, they pivot and look onto a total new product, which is hand sanitizer and which is rubbing alcohol. And that's a great example of a pivot. And a lot of brands are doing it. In the European market, we see brands who, like for instance, Volkswagen have pivoted to start producing some ventilators. So a lot of brands are doing it, and it's the other thing you need to ask yourself. With the same resources and with the same raw materials, what can you pivot on and what can you leverage on as a brand to grow? The other thing you need to think about is your customer. I mean, we talked about the consumer, and the consumer ultimately is the customer. And you also need to remember that these customers are in different segments. So the customer in the upper segment may not necessarily grow as a customer in the lower segment. So as much as all of them have been put into the same situation, the actions will be different. You see, for instance, if you go to a high-end room, they are most likely watching Netflix, using more data. That's when you go to a low-end where they will most likely be watching a normal TV. There are a lot of differences. I did mention that some people are looking to buy cars, and some people are looking for alternative means of transport, which is maybe let me stop taking taxi and take auto. So you need to understand the consumer segment, and then you need to also play and react to those consumer segments. The other point is think digital. It's very crucial at this point. And if not for anything, the fact that there's a whole consumer shift toward the retail, it means everybody is looking at this and you need to find yourself there. And I know that sometimes when we talk about digital, people think about all the complications, like do I need a website, do I need to have an app, do I need this, that, but please, even a phone call and a delivery service is digital. And we saw brands like Fan Milk adopt the same approach. Buy 20 series and they deliver to you. It's a digital thing. And so they advertise on digital platforms. They are there. It's just a call away. You can have Fan Milk or Fan Ice product in the home. After all of this, we need to remember that COVID-19 will eventually be over. And brands need to be forward thinking. You need to ask yourself, what will be the consumer state of mind after COVID-19? Is the consumer still going to be in this state of mind of panicking? Are there still going to be social distances? How will the consumer behavior be like after COVID-19? And you need to make sure you are strategizing to win. If you are not doing anything at this point, sit down and be strategizing to win as a brand so that you make sure that when this is over, you have the edge over all other brands. So that's my pointers for brands. The last 2 points move us into a very critical stage. And the last point was think digital or forward thinking. And I believe that what encompasses this would be e-commerce and the digital nature for all brands. So my next 2 slides before I wrap up is just to talk about digital and just to throw out some pointers there so that you have it in mind on what to do as a brand. So the question is, digital in the marketing mix, when all the P's become one. And for people who are in the marketing environment, if you look at digital critically, you understand that digital is the only place where there's a seamless intertwine between all the P's: the product, the price, the place, and the promotion. And to express that, I went online just to see, so just to give you a sense. So if you've been on Facebook recently, you would have seen superprice.com heavily advertising, and beneath that sponsored ad is a shop now, and if you click on the shop now, it will take you to the big page in the middle, and if you click on buy now, it will just bring you to this smaller page where you put in your details. There are some important things you need to notice. First of all of this happens within one platform, and that is the thing about digital, and that is about all the pieces in one platform. So you see the ad on Facebook. You click on the shop now, immediately takes you to a page. At that page, you can choose to buy now, you can choose to add to your cart and continue shopping, you can choose to have further details of the product, you can choose to have more information of the product, you can choose to have review of the product, or if you decide to click buy now, immediately takes you to another page where you're able to complete your shopping, provide your details, and give you payment options. So we are dealing with the price here. The product has been promoted, you are actually seeing the physical product able to look at it from all angles, get reviews, got all the sense of information about the product, and you're able to get use one click to get it at home. That is what I call, or what everybody says, is the magic of digital. And it's the place where we believe a lot of brands will be moving to post-COVID-19. So here are just a few thoughts about digital. Has a brand owner or has a product owner and has to think about what you should do post-COVID-19. For the product, you need to recognize that very quickly the consumers have lost that ability for intense scrutiny. In Ghana and most markets, before people buy things, even laptops, they like to touch it, like to feel it, like to go over it so many times. They like to scrutinize it and make sure that they are picking the best. People even go to shopping outlets, retail outlets, and they're like, oh, auntie, mommy. They want to pick what they feel they think is the best of. I need to quickly realize that the consumers may not be able to do that in the digital world. So what they would do is, one, they rely on previous experience with the product. So for instance, I always buy Nibu, or I always buy Mili, or I always buy Geisha, or I always buy MTN. So I know their product, I know their capabilities. I'm sure that when I buy it, I'm getting the same service or the same level of satisfaction I've always got to. But again, there are other things you need to consider as you're in the digital platform. Visual appeal. Because they cannot touch, they'll only be looking, turning it around and looking at it from more angles. So you need to make sure that you have a strong visual appeal. The visual appeal that is very, very appealing, so that as consumers look at it from more angles, they're like, okay, this is a product I want, both emotionally and functionally, is also satisfying my needs. Another thing you need to realize is consumers will then be looking for really what product is having for. So if I'm buying a product I'm not familiar with, one of the first questions I'll be saying is, what are the other people saying about this product? And people will scroll through the review list. If they go and your review is terrible, then you know for starters you have totally lost the consumer. Because consumers are looking for comfort, they are looking to buy things that will deliver or that will give them value for their money. Another thing you need to take advantage of in this product, as you think about product in digital, is make the opportunity for further information. And we saw it when we looked at the buying process I showed you earlier on. There was more information, and you can go a step further, provide phone lines so that people can call in to ask questions. Or sometimes now what I see happening a lot is these pop-up chats. You go to a website and immediately there's a pop-up and the customer service person start asking a question, how may I help you? And so it helps you get a full sense of the product, it helps you understand the product, and gives you in a more comfortable place to buy. Again, in terms of physical location where people ideally would have gone to buy, again, it's not available. But you see that when I say even place, you're like, okay, so now it's digital. So where is the place? Where is the product? That's why I said it's all the pieces almost converging into one platform. But what you can do to play on the place and win consumers is think about the senses that come into play when the consumer is at your site or your platform to buy your product. So yes, the question is, what is the consumer hearing? Do you play music when you get into your website? If there's a customer service or it's a phone call you need to make to buy the product, who does he speak to? How does the person accept him? How does the person provide information? You need to play on the senses of the consumer to convince the consumer to increase his state of consideration for your product or for your brand. Again, you need to think about how easily can you upsell other products to the consumer. So the consumer comes into your shop, typically, he will buy, let's say, milk, and say, let me buy granite and garri, so that after I've done my meal, maybe in the afternoon. So you also need to have this in the mindset of, so that when customers call you or they go into your shop, you are easily able to upsell. The consumer is buying a computer. How easily there's a pop-up comes in, you can add this mouse or you can add this speaker. The consumer wants to buy soap. How easily does it come that you can add deodorant, you can add this? You need to constantly think about upselling. And then again, it boils down also the thing of customer service. He's in this place, what kind of customer service have you put available? I mean, the same customer service that sells the product should be the same customer service that provides the customer with every information he needs. The other thing is price. Price is what the consumer is willing to pay in exchange at this instant in this digital setting, not only for your product but the whole experience. So you would sometimes customers in the digital space would even blame poor internet on you. They go there and they are clicking the product and it's not moving and they become angry. So in building your site, you need to understand, or in doing these things, you need to understand where you sit. Make sure that your pictures are not heavy. Make sure that your site is easily loadable. Make sure that if it's a phone call, you are readily available to give all the necessary information, because the consumer will picture all of these things as price. The question is, again, as the consumer buys from you, there is the knowledge that they will be paying for delivery fee. What packages can you offer to reduce that barrier? Would you say when consumers buy above a certain volume, they are given free delivery, or if they have to pay, what can you do thinking about price to eliminate price as a barrier? The other thing is, how can you offer other services to make payment easy? For instance, how does the customer pay? Are they paying through mobile money? Are they paying through digital platforms? You need to think about all these things holistically, how to give that customer that experience to make sure that whatever they purchase, they'll be like, okay, it was worth it. I went through a seamless service and I feel what I got is, I'm happy with it. Again, in promotion, like we saw in the previous slide, the advert of the laptop, the question is, how engaging is your creative? You've put an artwork there that has now become the main means of attracting a customer to buy from you. What is the messaging going with it? How can you make sure that as soon as the customer sees this, he's at least tempted to click and say, I want to know more, I want to see more, can I explore around this some more? And when they do that, the second level of engagement is, how do you then hold the customer and make sure it translates into a sale? So the customer just doesn't come and look at your products, turn around, but you put in mechanisms to make sure that you know when the customer is turning, looking at your products, reading reviews, and you are able to speak to the customer and convert this into a sale. So this is it about, these are my little tips about digital in the marketing mix that you can take into consideration as you build digital for your products and services in ensuring you're able to stay afloat, or you ensure you have an edge over COVID-19. Thank you very much. I'll take questions now, Fatima.
Thank you, Ahuma, even though you went by 20 minutes. Very insightful indeed. We have a few questions for you. Eunice is asking, Ahuma, please, you mentioned earlier that people are grabbing essentials, and I believe food is part of the essentials. But surprisingly, the recent figures you pulled out says 60% of people are buying less food than they can. Can you please explain this scenario better, because it comes as a bit of shock to me.
Okay, so I did talk about the food scenario and what was happening. When you read further down the research, you would realize that people are buying less, but they are buying in bulk. So people, what they are trying to do is reduce the number of times they go to shopping to buy. So the less that refers to the number of times people are actually going out to these retail outlets to pick out products. So whereas first people would schedule that I would shop on a weekly basis, now people go and they basically shop for the month. So they go there less times than they typically would.
Okay, Neneso Abloso is asking, although we are in abnormal times, business still needs to go on. However, many, if not all, brands are crippling. For brands that have post-COVID events to hold, which obviously demand sponsorship and funding, how do we still pitch proposals during this time with the hope of securing sponsorship funds without coming off as insensitive to a fellow brand or company?
That's a tricky one, but what I have done and what the advice from a lot of research said, and we saw it from the Millward Brown research, where they said whatever actions your brand takes, the consumers are looking for brands that are helping them and helping society. So whatever you are thinking about as you look for sponsorship and the rest, try and couch it around what the consumer wants. A lot of the businesses understand that ultimately right now the consumer is king. if they want to do something, it should be around the consumer. So if the research is saying that, for instance, less companies do events that let companies take advantage of it. Let companies do events that seem to answer to the need of the consumer in terms of what that they are trying to help them. So just for instance, take this webinar session as an example. And we are organizing a webinar session for key stakeholders because Global Media Alliance believes that in this time, as marketers and the rest, you need to understand how you can get an edge and how you can win in COVID-19 period. It's the same mindset. The consumer wants to see that brands are helping them, but are not just helping them, but are helping society. So you need to have that mindset as you develop your programs.
All right, our final question is from Edward, and he's asking, is offering free delivery for product purchases a good way of being empathetic in these times?
Well, you see, the thing about free delivery is it always eats into your margins. So you need to be careful. First of all, you need to understand what your margin structure is. So that's why I said potentially you can say that when you buy up to a certain volume, I will give you free delivery. But if you say that at every amount the person should get free delivery, it's most likely going to affect your margin. So you need to bear that in mind.
All right, thank you so much, Ahoma, for your presentation. We'll move on to our next speaker, Roger Adepri, and he is going to talk to us about the consumer and trade behaviors to expect in this COVID-19 era. And Roger, I understand you have 5 minutes, so make it snappy, and then we'll